Hello, and we're back. Okay, so next epic speaker is well known in leadership worldwide, Olaf Lewitz, and his lecture, How Does a Technical Guy Becomes an Agile Leader? I'm sure you all know a lot of tech guys, but how many leaders do you know? Also, Olaf the tech guy is Jim Carrey, Cable Guy's younger brother. On dev stage, Nikola Bogdanov is a university teacher lecturing in the past 4 years at the University of Sofia. With him you will discuss Agile outside IT. Now is the time for it, but can we actually do it? Yes, people, things outside IT exist. And on the Serbian stage, we have a Serbian duo. This is my favorite lecture title, Ensuring the Biggest Bang for Buck. There's money, there's banging. Thank you, Ana Pegan and Bojan Milutinovic. I will see you all in front of the X stage. Joking aside, right now on Epic, please welcome Olaf Lewitz.
Hello and welcome. There's a long and a short answer to this question. How does a technical guy become an agile leader? The short one is by accident. This is a first of its kind talk in many ways. One of them is that I was kind of given this topic. It was imposed on me in a very friendly way. Jelena came and said, "Do you want to talk at the conference?" And we, "Sure." And you can talk about anything you like. And what the Serbian guys really need to hear from you is this. And I'm like, okay, that's easy. I just need to share my story. And then 2 weeks ago, I was thinking, okay, how do I actually structure this? How do I actually make this a good talk? So that it's not just a story. And yeah, I hope you let me know how it works. I'll introduce you to the structure in a minute. So who am I? Olaf Lewitz, I'm from Berlin. I called myself the trust artist when I became independent about 5 years ago, almost to the day. That was on the 1st of May, 2013. And at the beginning, it was a challenge. It was something that I wanted to be, and I've spent 5 years understanding trust, understanding art, and understanding myself in a way that I can do what I do. I'm one of about 100 certified enterprise coaches on this planet, and I'm a CAL educator, which is a strange name for somebody who does certified agile leadership trainings and programs. And together with Christina, who had an earlier talk about meetings today, we just ran our second CAL 1 training in Belgrade the last 2 days. And I hope there's some people in the audience who were there. It's really, really cool. Thank you. I believe that if you love what you do, it becomes bigger than you. And what I do, and I think this is a talk where that comes through very clearly, then I can help you do that as well. And to give you a chance to check in as well, I kind of now feel I've arrived on stage, and I'm here. I'm not nervous behind the stage anymore. I'm here, and I feel accepted and welcome. I would like you to feel accepted and welcome too. So when you pull up the poll on the match about thing, you can check in. As it so happens, and this is something that happens to me often, with things I just do naturally, I cross boundaries of systems, and somebody says, "Oh, you can't do that." And then I say, "Well, I just did." In this case, the match about system doesn't support as many options as I put on this slide, so you might have a bit fewer. Are we seeing the result? Is somebody... Do you see the options on your phones? Cool, okay. So let me check. It's good to have a list. I'm not tired, which is interesting after so many amazing, exhilarating days in Belgrade. I'm not anxious very much, but as I said, it's an experiment, this talk. I have no idea how the timing will work, but I'm really glad that there's this clock counting down so I can pay attention. I'm assuming that you would like to have a few minutes at the end to ask questions, so I try to finish a bit before the clock is over. Can we see results of the poll? Yes. 48 people have feelings. Awesome. If there's one thing you take away from this talk, and this is actually not in the slides anywhere, but to assume that we can let our emotions outside of anything is a myth. So bringing them into a meeting, bringing them into a situation where you are, and then say, okay, I am angry, but that's not important for this meeting. Or I am anxious because I'm not used to 100 faces staring at me. But that's not important because I want to deliver a talk, so I'm not going to focus on it. That's a really, really good practice. Can we go back to the slides? Thank you very much for checking in. You are all very welcome. There's the next Cal1 in Belgrade. I wanted to set the date with Jelena, but I didn't manage to, so it doesn't yet have a date. But I'm sure in the Agile month in November, we will come back and do another Cal1 training. For those of you who have done with Cal1 with us already, we're also preparing a continuing Cal2 journey, and we'd love to do that with a group in Belgrade. I also do online coaching. For those of you who rather want to talk to me for an hour, then have me come for multiple days to Belgrade, which might also be expensive. And we'd love to run our leadership trainings in companies. And given that this culture here is so much more collaborative and social, something that we discovered this week, talking to people about why do you come so early to an event to talk to other people? This is not something that German people would do. I would really love to explore how we can change the culture of a Serbian organization when we do introduce concepts that you get to try with me now. I'm assuming you all know that the road to hell is paved with good intentions, right? And that well-intended is not the same as well done. So what this talk will be mostly about, and my first short answer by accident gave you a hint to that already, is a series of misinterpretations, challenges, obstacles, and decisions that I didn't necessarily make, but that I let happen in some way. I would like to introduce a few definitions at the beginning. What would you call improving with intention? That's what I call agile. I don't know if anything is agile or not agile. I know that when you say that's not agile, a fairy dies. I don't care if you have a waterfall and improve it, or if you're doing Scrum and improve it, or if you're doing Kanban and improve it, or if you do your very own chaotic process shit and improve it. If you constantly improve it, it's agile. Making a difference with intention is what we call leadership. It's one of many possible definitions. The intention is important for the improvement to be possible. I can make a difference by accident, and somebody might interpret that as a great act of leadership on my part. But if I'm not conscious of my intention, I have no way of improving. Does that make sense? So, agile leadership is improving, making a difference with intention. And the phrasing is intentionally ambiguous. Yes, it is improving with intention and making a difference with intention. You need to have intention for both. That's agile leadership in a nutshell. Okay, so how do you do that? One core element of our philosophy is that we want to increase clarity. It's very big on our t-shirts and on our book cover. Clarity of intent of what we want, clarity of reality of where we are, what's really going on, rip off the carpet, look at the shit, face it, look into the mirror, face it, look at reality, and then change it with good intentional choices. One thing I didn't know when I started out becoming a leader, and also a reason why I didn't choose to become a leader, because I would have been way too afraid to do that, is that leaders go first into unknown and into danger. That's why in many organizations and many tribal groups of human beings, leaders get perks. They get a higher salary, a bigger car, whatever. If they fail to go first into unknown and danger, then we get very, very angry. If they just rip us off, take our money, and don't support us, don't serve us, don't save us from danger, we get angry. That's Simon Sinek in my words. What I knew when I started out growing myself and growing a career was I needed to know who I am and what I want to make any difference. Something that I learned earlier than many other people I knew is that when I know who I am and I know what I want, the chances that I get it increase immensely. Duh. So, one way to figure out what you want is a method that we use as the core of our leadership training, and that's called clean slate. And I quickly demonstrate that with the situation of me 2 weeks ago needing to prepare slides for this talk. The 4 basic questions or perspectives you use to look at your situation is, how do I fail the system? How does the system fail me? And flipping it around, how do I serve the system? How does the system serve me? Sounds very logical. It's very good for my analytical engineering brain. Simplified version, a friend of mine came up with this in a training in Cologne a few weeks ago. He just wrote down, his name was not Olaf, but I adapted it. Olaf against the system, system against Olaf, Olaf for the system, system for Olaf, in a nutshell. So, Olaf is preparing slides, no, Olaf is supposed to be preparing slides for the Belgrade conference. I usually do drawings, you could write too, but drawings help me be more inspired. So, time is ticking, and I am late, as always. There's so many things to do, there's so many slides to prepare, and I have no idea what it is. And one of the negative effects of having drawings on slides is that you need to remember what they mean, and I don't know what that means anymore. So another way of me failing the system right now is I have no idea what this means. And I don't think that's a problem. So how is the system working against me? It's providing me with lots of things I should be doing, and I am doing. Lots of people waiting for stuff from me, expecting stuff from me, and asking nice things that are, in the short term, more interesting and rewarding than thinking about slides, preparing the slides. What am I doing to support this system? And this is a devious question. So it's like, how am I good in this system? Yes. But it also, how am I benefiting from, how am I supporting the bullshit that I'm doing? So what I'm doing, what I try to picture here is that I have so many interests, so many things I'm curious about. I read 50 books in parallel, and I always never finish any of those. I am thinking about stuff all the time, even when I'm supposed to be sleeping, and then I'm worried about that, and then, well, maybe you know how that is. What's the system doing for me? How is the system serving me? Lots of new ideas. Okay, that's supporting what I'm not doing, right? There are things I do to earn money, and the slides at a conference don't directly fall under earning money, so sometimes that takes advantage. There are things I do for people I love, like cooking at home. Takes up time that I could use for preparing slides, but I don't, etc. So you get the picture. So that's the way of 4 perspectives on a situation. What can we learn? Maybe you are familiar with the not knowing what slides comes next is another way to fail the system. So how does this work? Why is this helpful? The questions guide you to what's interesting. And usually one answer to a question leads to a next question, as you will see when you try this for yourself. When you have this white canvas, it asks for multiple perspectives. When something is missing, there's a white spot, you kind of feel compelled to draw or write something more on it. You identify the motivational forces that pull us forward or hold us back. And this is important for a leader to understand, for yourself and for the people you are leading, which mostly will be yourself at first. And it's a great way of separating what we want from what we think we should do, what others expect of us. And these things are always in conflict. One way that helps, and I'm just asking for a sign of hands, when sharing this with other people, we learn how we're all similar and different. So who has any reference in what I just told you about my slide preparation thing where you think, I'm similar to Olaf? Many of you. Who has an example of I'm different from Olaf? Some of you. That's weird. But that's okay. Maybe I'm half blind and it's very dark and your hands are just not high up enough for me to identify. So what this method does, it lets us experience how we can be like people who are not like us. And when you do that in a team, where somebody who's not like you could potentially be somebody you don't like a lot, when you do an exercise like this and you find out that in some ways they are actually like you, then all of this becomes a little ambiguous, a little flexible, and then relationships can change and improve. Leonard Cohen has this beautiful quote, there's a crack in everything, that's where the light gets in. Clean slate is a method to open those cracks. I invite you, if you have something to write, Jelena told me that everybody has a book, a notebook, maybe you have something else to write, maybe you have an iPad, I don't care. If you create a shape like this, and whenever you notice something in my clean slates, I'm going to continue doing clean slates of different situations in my life, when I was a programmer, when I became a boss, when I was a coach, and looking with these questions at my situations. And my assumption is that you will have some resonance, some memory when you hear my story, and that you might want to jot down some keywords so that after the talk, after the conference, you can look at, what's interesting? What can I do with this? Maybe you can continue it, can continue writing stuff down, you can create a drawing like this, whatever you want to do, but you can take the inspiration from the talk and do something with it. That would be my hope. I hope that works. So start taking notes. You don't need to write down the questions. They'll be on every slide. And use what comes up for you. So, 1998, I've got my first full-time job as a programmer. I started programming in '85 when I was 15. And in the 90s, you got a programming job when you could put the words the letters HTML in the correct order. I was a little better than that. So, what was the situation? How did that work? I have this beautiful thing. So how do I fail the system? I have way too many things I'm interested in. I had studied psychology, physics, philosophy, and musicology. I had read so many different books. I was an introvert. I definitely had a strong preference for not have people around me, or not so many, or not so close, at least not in close relationships. That was my situation when looking for a job. I had strong experiences of my open, creative, relational self. This is probably me aged 3 in a visible way. Having been disapproved by people around me. So at age 3, I would walk into a room and say, Mama, these two people don't like each other. Do you see that too? And people wouldn't generally like that. I had absolutely no idea how to earn money. But I liked programming. And it seemed like, although I had no computer science degree or any education formally in that area, it seemed to be the case that I could get a job. So I started applying to job adverts. I loved it, right? Inside the computer, I could create a beautiful world. I could be empathetic, I could be creative, I could do everything I loved, and nobody noticed. Outside, I could be a kind of introvert man, non-emotional, non-whatever. How did the system serve me? I worked in a company doing stock pricing charts that was mathematically interesting, it was visually interesting, had to do with money, something I found puzzling, and I was curious about it at some point. And I had a loving family. My daughter was born when or my wife got pregnant when I got my first serious job offer, so I had to take it. My daughter graduated from high school last year, so that's a long time ago, but we're still together. And yeah, so that was my situation. That was how I started out as a programmer. And again, just very briefly reflecting on the method, look at a situation from different angles and see what comes up, what kind of decision you made. For me, very interesting was doing this 20 years after the fact, still revealed valid and valuable insights on why I did things I did that hadn't been so obvious to me at the time. Fairly shortly after that, I became a boss. I got a job offer from Hamburg to become an IT leader. They wanted me to introduce a process in the company. There was 2000. The white XP book had just come out. I had been reading about XP since 1998. And I said to my boss, can we do this? And he said, extreme programming, that sounds weird. But I hired you because I trust you, so go ahead. So we became one of the first 3 companies in Germany doing extreme programming. That was fun. A lot of other stuff in this situation was not fun at all. So mainly inside of this kind of proud Olaf being a managing director after a few months was a very, very small Olaf, very afraid that anybody could come and find out that I had no idea how to be a manager. I had no idea how to be a boss. What I didn't dare to do was ask for help. I didn't dare to ask questions because I thought I should be providing the answers. That was my very limited understanding of being a boss, of being a manager, and didn't work well. I've since talked to hundreds of managers in my career as a consultant and coach who had a very similar pattern when they started out in a leadership role, stepping from being the best expert, programmer, architect, whatever, teacher. In Germany, we promote the best teacher in the school to become the school principal. It's so stupid. And then you get to lead your peers, which means there's jealousy and envy all around, which we don't talk about because we're not emotional, right? And I suddenly am challenged at being a newbie in what I do, plus I don't want to show any weakness. Not a good combination. The realization that this was the case, I didn't realize that. I was 30. I was young and needed the money. But I realize it now, and it gives me a lot of compassion for managers, especially managers who are starting out in bigger organizations. So how did the system fail me? Lots of expectations, lots of legal stuff that made the whole thing more intimidating. I went to a half-day course of being a managing director and learned all the things that could get me into jail if I made a mistake. I had a boss who hired me, and as I said, he trusted me. That was great, on the one hand, and on the other hand, I didn't want to disappoint him. So I couldn't go to him and say, I actually don't feel up for this job, I need your help. And then there were people who had been great programmer colleagues, and they were also still good friends when I became their boss. But it never worked out to be a good working relationship because of my inability to communicate this. How did I serve the system? I did what I thought I needed to do. Right? That's something that you probably have done at some point in your life as well. I encourage you not to do that too often, it hurts you. I did another thing that hurt my health. I was working my ass off. As a manager, I had meetings all day and I was programming all night. I was in the office at 10 a.m. and I left at 2 in the night. I made 100 hours a week for about a year. I was a startup, was supposed to go public, etc. Big money promises that all didn't come, of course. Not a good combination. How did the system serve me? I earned a good salary. It was way more than I had as a programmer before. It didn't make me rich, but it seemed much at the time. I had a nice company car, and I had this imagination of a career. A hamster wheel looks like a career ladder from the inside. It's a quote that I heard from a guy I worked with at Siemens many years later. Should have told me that in 2002. So that was me becoming a boss. That company broke down with the dot-com bubble. Oh, sorry. It's late in the afternoon. You need to be woken up. So I found myself out of job. And I got a call from a guy in Berlin who said, "Oh, I can't believe you don't have a job. Do you want to come talk to my boss? Because I think we could need you in our company." And he said, that boss said, Herr Lewitz, can imagine so many great things you could do in my company. I can't afford any of those. They were still alive. They were still making a little money, but it's still dot-com bubble had burst, and customers were very tight with their budgets, etc. So he said, the only thing I can afford is if you become a consultant and you go to our clients and you bring me more money in, then I need to pay you. I was like, oh, that's honest. I like that. Sounds reasonable and sensible. I like that too. It was a lot more pragmatic than the big promises of a lot of money that I had before. And I was damn afraid. Remember, I was an introvert. I preferred sitting in a basement programming. I didn't like talking to people, at least not programmers. And the idea of going to companies, telling them what to do, that was weird. And I was successful. As you can see now, I'm not really an introvert anymore. I do need to manage my energy when 100 people look at me, but you've been so lovely all day and all week that I feel really comfortable here, and I don't have any energy or whatever issues. And I noticed over and over and over that the way I work with people actually helps them get successful. I did a lot of agile work, which was great. And after a while, that situation became too comfortable. So what happened was I lost my curiosity. I didn't learn anything anymore. I had been in that company for 8 years. I was the senior consultant. Everybody treated me like royalty, customers and the company. It was lovely. My wife and my daughter were not so happy because I was usually away 5 days a week, sometimes in 5 different cities. And I didn't take any time for myself, which was definitely not a good idea. So it would be have 25 kilos more of Olaf back then. That was like 2010-ish. I felt treated unfairly because at the time the company was really making a lot of money. And they still didn't agree to raise my salary or anything. This whole putting Olaf on a pedestal and telling, oh, you are so cool, you're so great, etc., was nice in a way, but also didn't help me grow. How did I serve the system? I made people happy. I made teams successful. I made successful changes in companies. I learned a lot about how to consult and also a bit about how to coach. But I didn't get any new and more interesting challenges. And the system serves me by putting nice opportunities in my way to pluck low-hanging fruits, making these people happy in these big organizations, flying around to different customers. I did think that the salary was unfair, but it was also okay money, right? So I wasn't starving or anything. So what happened then? I talked to a friend, and Christina has talked about open space before in the meetings. She's mentioned the law of 2 feet. And that friend told me when we talked about my job, he said, have you applied the law of 2 feet to your job situation? And I was like, what do you mean? He said, when you find yourself in a situation where you don't learn, don't contribute, or don't have fun, you should use your 2 feet and go someplace where you can do that. And I was like, contribute, yes. Fun, sometimes. Learn, no. Check, I'm leaving. So then I became an Agile coach. I had made contact with the Agile community. I had learned that there's a thing called Agile coaching. I joined Agile 42, which is probably still today the company on this planet that has the most good reputation for really great Agile coaching. And I thought, that's where I can learn how to become a good Agile coach and how to become a good coach. And I did that. I was there for 2.5 years. And I loved the company, I loved the work we did, but I noticed something that was not working so well anymore, which was I had discovered this thing called growth and this thing called Olaf tries new things and Olaf discovers new things about himself. And that was a challenge within a system that wanted to provide a consistent service. So we separated ways and I became independent, as I mentioned earlier, and I was scared. So, how did I fail that system? So again, I already said that, too many curious ideas, too many new things I wanted to try. I didn't want to do agile transformation with a plan. I wanted to go into organizations and see what I can stir up and instigate. I loved the agile way, but to me, this hard thing, this connecting to human beings and like to simplify it a lot, what happens if I go into an organization and just hug everybody? That was not the conscious plan, but I did something very similar. There's also still the problem that I thought of myself a lot less than other people thought of me, so I was a lot less confident inside than how I appear to other people. It's not so bad anymore, but the tendency is still there. How did the system fail me? I didn't feel that my meandering path into the future of finding out what I wanted fit the strategic plans of the company. So the company expected us to go into one common direction, which I totally understood. I mean, I co-created that strategy with them, right? So it was our strategy. I just didn't feel I should be how do you say? I should be limited to follow it. I thought it was a good idea for the others. So the other problem was that there were all these awesome coaches around me, and I was still behaving as if I was the youngest kid on the block. I joined the company with this idea, when I join a band, I want to be the worst player, because then I have the most learning. And I didn't notice that through my learning I had grown, and their view on me was different from how I viewed myself compared to them, and that was a problem. And again, there was this idea of money not being fair. And the main problem, as I would look at it now, is I was not in control of it. I do not earn more money now as I'm independent, but I can negotiate myself. I can, when I work with people in Serbia, I can say, surely I will work for you at a different rate compared to what I'm asking German organizations, for instance. Or when I work with somebody who is out of a job and who says, I need coaching, but I can't pay you. And I say, okay, let's do that for a while. I can't do that all the time, but I can do that. And that's important. So the freedom is more important than the money. What's happening now? There was a problem and Microsoft PowerPoint was closed. We apologize for the inconvenience. Fuck you, Redmond. But they're polite, right? Recover work and restart Microsoft PowerPoint. Let's try that. Okay. Recent. Boss. Independent. Olaf? Oh, we had that already. Olaf is scared of being independent. There we are. Okay. I really loved what I was doing. The beautiful thing about working in a company like Agile 42 is you get one awesome job after the other and you don't need to do anything for it. That was perfect. And I was not only afraid of having to find my own customers and maybe failing at that, I thought I don't like marketing and sales, like many engineers. Who of you is a developer? Who of you, keep your hands up if you like marketing and sales. Okay. I think this is actually, I was going to say stupid, but I don't want to be offensive, and I had the same belief for many years. But this is like, I don't know, in Germany, the Prussians and the Bavarians hate each other. Like, not really, but we make a big fuss about hating each other. And I think this tradition of engineers and business people having this pretend of being so different and being so, like, you are the others, this is not helping us be successful. It's not helping them being successful. It's not helping us being successful, us engineers. And it's not even really fun. It's a drama we should not be playing anymore. So how does the system serve me? Wow, what did I draw there? Oh, yes, diversity in the group, and I felt held by this big hand, right? So I felt very safe in the system. And I did have lots of ideas, and somehow most of them fit into the conversations we had, etc. I just couldn't put all of them into practice. So that was me being scared of being independent, and I still haven't become a leader. By this time, I have helped really big companies do transformations. I had organized huge conferences. I had been a keynote speaker internationally on a different continent. I had done lots of things that people would call leadership. But when you had told me in 2014, Olaf, you are a leader, I would have gone, no, other people lead. I'm just Olaf. I might be a decent coach. I had some confidence of my coaching in 2014, but not leadership. So, this is the final clean slate. I'm Olaf, and I'm realizing I'm a leader. One thing that happened in 2015 was that Christina and we had done a lot of personal work with people over many years, and we wanted to put together an academy. And I don't actually remember why, but we framed it as a leadership academy. We framed the work we had been doing for years as leadership work, and suddenly everything shifted. And one of the things that we did, we set up the first leadership academy as a 10-month program. So we started out in October 2015 to work with 10 people over 10 months. And what happened there was that I was observing things I was doing and the effect on these 10 people. And I saw their gratitude. I heard what they said about my work. I saw the effect. And I simply couldn't evade the fact anymore that I was making these changes or that I was helping them make these changes. And the other thing was that over these 10 months, we talked about leadership all the time. And I always had this like, oh, I actually have been leading in my life. I would never wanted to admit it. Probably because of a similar stupid thing in my head, like, I'm not like them, right? I didn't have many role models for great leaders in my life. They were maybe in books, like Gandalf or Gandhi or whatever, but I didn't have any people like that in my environment. Most leaders I worked with were not leaders that impressed me, so I didn't want to be like them. Maybe that was a reason. So looking into this, so how did I fail the system? I didn't want to be a leader. I'm me. I'm agile. I'm a people person. I had ideas about this whole teal thing. I don't know if you know about that. I had no certification, so I thought if you don't have a certification, how can you be a leader? And I had a thing. It's funny because now that I see this guy is actually leading. So it's supposed to be somebody, me running and looking, where are you? Why are you not where I am? So this is something that frequently happens to me, that I'm thinking ahead or running ahead and then finding myself alone, which is a leader thing. So maybe it's on the wrong part of the slide. Never mind. How does the system fail me? The system is telling me to help people going agile, which is something that I never really liked. This is what I just mentioned. The role models of leaders that I saw were not appealing to me. So I didn't have any role models that I wanted to learn from. How do I serve the system? I was quite comfortable in I'm embracing the world, I'm welcoming everybody, I'm the good, kind, huggable coach. I work with people in these diverse groups, and I bring things together and I make stuff work. I can talk to somebody who thinks they are small and frustrated and let them think and believe that they are great and successful. I can see and realize potential in people. So that's how I was serving my position and my role as a coach and trust artist, but not a leader. And the system served me by providing me opportunities to lead that I could then recognize in hindsight. So I was actually a scout as a kid, and I became a scout leader when I was like 14 or 15. I had totally forgotten about that. ALE was this big conference that we organized, Agile Lean Europe. Has anybody heard of that movement or that conference? It's happening in Zurich this year. We started it in 2011, and it's been in a different country. We wanted to create a conference where as many Europeans as possible come together who talk about lean and agile practitioners. And we managed within 3 months in a team of 40 people from, 20 plus countries, and I was leading that group, to set up a conference in Berlin with 250 people from 34 countries. Something I was really proud of at the time it happened. I still am proud of it. If you had asked me at the time, I would I've just sent a few emails. I've been really busy for very many months, but I wasn't leading. So there. These are things that I've been thinking about when I reflected on how I became a leader. And you have seen 5 examples of a method that we frequently use for people to look at stuck situation to become unstuck. There's almost 5 minutes left. I want to introduce you to our lens for leadership. This is a wheel that is rooted in, turns around your identity, knowing who you are, knowing what you want, intention. That's what I started out with, you might remember that. And then you can focus your attention on 3 different things. Developing relationships. I think most of the talk I've spent on developing your relationship with me, understanding me as a human being and understanding my choices. Now I'm focusing on your relationship with this model. And developing relationships is what we do most of the time as leaders. We develop some relationship. Sometimes we're not aware of which. So that's what this wheel is about, that I focus on, okay, what's the relationship I'm currently developing? Managing contexts, something that I didn't need to do much for. I prepared slides, but most of the context here has been prepared by the amazing team that set up this conference, and I'm totally amazed how flawless they do this at this scale. And then nurturing growth is the 3rd thing. If leadership is taking responsibility for something that grows, then you need to know how growth works. You need to know how to set direction, vision, goals, steps, milestones. You need to understand progress. You need to understand process and tools. All of the classical management things belong in this nurture growth area. So this is our understanding of leadership and how you can improve your leadership when you make sense of what you're doing right now. What is your attention focused on right now? And the more you become intentional about that, the better you can serve the people you're leading. Many people ask me when I say I'm a trust artist, or when we say that our company is called TrustTemenos Academy, but trust is so difficult. You can't trust people. The one thing that you can trust everybody, no matter how disappointed you are of their past behavior, is that they can eventually, at some point, surprise you. Just a thought that might help you. Be the change you want to see in the world. That's what I would like you to leave you with. We have a bit more than 2 minutes for questions. You could shout out something, or maybe somebody posted one on the Match About side. What are you curious about? What does Olaf do next? That's a good question. I will definitely continue the leadership work because of all the trainings I've done in my life. This is the first training that I actually enjoy repeating. And the reason is that we meet different people every time with different challenges and at different stages of their individual journeys. So I don't need to repeat the same model, repeat the same, this is how you do Scrum, or this is how you do X. We can be extremely adaptive in what we put into these trainings because people pull what they want to learn, what they need to learn in their specific context. And that's extremely rewarding and interesting and fun. So I'm definitely going to do more of that. We also started something interesting, a course in magic last year. School of Coaching, Witchcraft and Wizardry, which is an online school for business development for coaches. So that as a coach, you find your unique advantage, the magic that only you can do, and find metaphors for your confidence and your courage, and look at your shadows, what's holding you back. So a lot of work like these clean slates is part of it too. So that's what I'm up to now, and I'm sure something else will come my way. One thing that I would really love doing is work with a Serbian company and explore how Serbian leadership really looks like when you unleash it. That's something I'd be interested in. Any other question? There's still half a minute to go. Yesterday I heard a question, how did you deal with the fact that you couldn't program anymore? And that was an interesting one because at the time I faded out of programming. I had like 10 years as a consultant where I was still occasionally programming, but I don't miss it. I talk to developers so much and so often that I don't miss doing the actual programming. I've said this, there's a book, actually there's 2 books now. The Leading with Intention is about the leadership model, and Showing Up is our book about Temenos. If you're interested in more, let us know, we're still here. Thank you.